A boy who just wants to study hard and get into college finds himself at Korea's most violent high school.
고마워.
When bullies burn his study materials and attack his friends, he's forced to use his fists to protect his dream of learning. But to understand how Ji-min ended up in this impossible situation, we need to go back to where his journey really began.
하나의 학으로 이루어진
Ever since Ji-min was little, he had been extremely eager to learn. He listened carefully to every word his teachers said and wrote down detailed notes.
시도 못하는데 이게 무슨 의미인지 모르겠네.
However, despite all his efforts, his grades were always some of the worst in the class. While other students slept during lessons, Ji-min was the only one paying attention.
이건 내가 잘못이다.
Frustrated by his poor performance, Ji-min asked his mom to hire a private tutor to help him improve.
선생님, 저 이제 진짜
But even with extra tutoring, it didn't make any difference. His teacher suspected he was filling out the wrong answer sheet because how could someone studying so hard do so badly? Ji-min didn't give up easily. He tried studying everywhere he could, from the classroom to the bathroom to the bus. The result? He ranked second to last in the whole school. Most students would have quit, but not Ji-min. That's when Ji-min discovered a clever path. He decided to enroll at Young Vocational High School and then try to get direct admission to university from there. On his first day at this new school, he was filled with excitement and hope.
숨만 쉬면서 내신만 잘 따면
But reality didn't match his dreams at all. As soon as Ji-min walked into his classroom, he ran into a full-on brawl like a gangster movie. The students at Young High School were all thugs and bullies, and a good kid like him was completely out of place. Ji-min thought he could just put up with the violence and focus on getting good grades to get into college. But wouldn't you know it, Ji-min's test scores were still near the bottom of the school rankings. This made him seriously question the meaning of life and whether he could ever succeed. He convinced himself that the tough-looking students must be studying secretly at home, which is why they were doing better than him. Ji-min still had one last trick up his sleeve, finding friends to study with. His mom's friend had mentioned that her son improved by 10 places after joining a study group. The next day, Ji-min carefully scanned every student in his class, looking for someone who showed eagerness to learn.
얘도 아니고
He noticed a boy named Se-hun who had a glint of intelligence in his eyes. As Ji-min was approaching Se-hun to suggest forming a study group together, another student started a fight. This student wanted to challenge Se-hun to compete for a spot on the school's combat power leaderboard.
173이
The classmates excitedly cheered and pressured Se-hun to fight back, but he was too weak. He ended up getting beaten and dropping to 170th place on the school's combat power rankings. It turned out that Young High School had an app that ranked all students based on their fighting abilities, and everyone was obsessed with climbing higher on this list.
너 제대로 안 싸우면
The school announced that their homeroom teacher had quit and a new teacher was coming to replace him. Surprisingly, it turned out to be Miss Han Young, Ji-min's old tutor from middle school. As Miss Han Young was calling attendance, suddenly some guy threw a cup of coffee at the board. This rude student was Hyun-woo, the most feared person in school. He complained that she was talking too loud and then slapped another guy in the face for farting. The student sitting next to Hyun-woo cursed him out for throwing his coffee, so another fight broke out. Hyun-woo beat the other guy badly. Miss Han Young angrily smashed her book on the desk. After taking care of the other student, Hyun-woo grinned and taunted the teacher while taking out the trash. Miss Han Young was shocked to see the trash cans completely full of cigarette packs and cigarette butts. Students at this school were smoking openly without even trying to hide it. That's when Miss Han Young recognized Ji-min. Since it had been so long since she'd seen him, she apologized for quitting her tutoring job 3 years ago without saying anything. Ji-min was worried about her because the previous homeroom teacher only lasted 1 month before quitting. But Miss Han Young didn't seem afraid of the challenges ahead. Ji-min began his plan to get a study buddy. He secretly followed Se-hun to the library, but it turned out this guy was just coming here to sleep, not to study. Ji-min laid down next to him and started complaining out loud, wishing he had someone to study with. He offered Se-hun candy and invited him to hang out, but Se-hun didn't even bother to look at him. Ji-min stubbornly kept bothering Se-hun, which drove him crazy. Unable to sleep because of the disturbance, Se-hun finally had to explain a math problem to Ji-min just to make him stop talking. Unexpectedly, Ji-min asked a very dumb question that made Se-hun realize this boy was completely hopeless at studying. Se-hun asked why Ji-min even wanted to be good at studying. Ji-min insisted that he was just hiding his true abilities and would improve soon. Se-hun denied having any special talent, but Ji-min had been paying close attention to small details. Se-hun's hair was cut just long enough to cover his eyes, his middle finger had a callus from writing so much, and his neck was slightly hunched from always looking down while studying. Especially those eyes, they had a genuine bookworm's aura. Ji-min asked Se-hun to join a study group with him, but Se-hun was harsh. He said Ji-min wasn't just bad at studying, he was super bad. He told Ji-min that he was a lost cause. Se-hun also warned that Hyun-woo was the most feared person in school, and even dreaming of getting good grades would make them targets. Hyun-woo was the son of the infamous and ruthless Yan Baek gang boss. He was the one who created the combat power ranking act that the whole school was desperately fighting over. Se-hun said it was best not to dream of studying at all in this school. Ji-min didn't care about the warnings. He pulled out Se-hun's test results that he had accidentally gotten, and they showed that this bookworm was ranked second in the whole school. Ji-min excitedly invited Se-hun to form a study group and go to college together. But Se-hun's eyes turned red with emotion. He tore up the paper and walked away, leaving Ji-min sitting there confused. The truth was that Se-hun came from a very poor family, and his father didn't support his dream of going to college. Today, Hyun-woo was given a scholarship for having the best academic performance in the school. Everyone clapped and applauded, except for Se-hun, who looked a bit sad. As soon as Se-hun entered the bathroom, he was picked on by Hyun-woo, who dragged him to the practice area for a one-sided beating. Se-hun just gritted his teeth and endured the pain, not daring to fight back. Miss Han-young was moving some trash cans when she accidentally saw Se-hun getting beaten up. She called for other teachers to help, but they all pretended not to see anything. She was about to rush in herself when suddenly Ji-min appeared and said, "Let me save my study buddy." He put on a mask, grabbed a fire extinguisher, and sprayed it directly at the group of thugs. Then he told Se-hun to run away quickly. But Se-hun didn't thank Ji-min. Instead, he got angry, saying Ji-min could only help him this once, and then the bullies would beat him up again later. "How can I keep running away forever?" Se-hun asked sadly. "I want to study too, but survival is more important." As Se-hun walked away, he ran into Hyun-woo blocking his path with a bat. Hyun-woo demanded to know where the guy in the mask was, but Se-hun refused to reveal Ji-min's name. Hyun-woo went crazy and started hitting Se-hun mercilessly. When suddenly, Ji-min appeared and kicked Hyun-woo's bat into pieces. It turned out that Ji-min, despite being a hopeless student, possessed a naturally strong body. Not only that, but from 3rd grade until now, he had been training every single day without fail. He heard that a healthy body helps create a healthy mind. No wonder Ji-min just swung his arm lightly and Hyun-woo was already unconscious on the ground. Se-hun was stunned by his friend's fighting skills but still refused to join the study group. He pointed out that even Ji-min was afraid of being recognized, which is why he had to wear a mask. Disappointed, Se-hun went home where he was scolded by his drunken father. His father wouldn't let Se-hun go to college and told him to focus on learning welding. Se-hun's father said that even after going to college, people just end up working in factories anyway, so what's the point? Se-hun had listened to his father and gone to Yunghai to study welding, but his father was still not satisfied with him. Se-hun sat outside feeling depressed when he saw the math books he was about to sell as scrap paper. Looking at the way education is viewed so differently by different families really makes you think about privilege and opportunity. Speaking of different perspectives, I'm curious, what country are you watching this from? Let me know in the comments. Ji-min was just as bummed out. This wasn't the first time he had failed so badly at learning. Someone even told him that instead of joining a study group, he should just be reborn and come back smarter. Ji-min's mom comforted him, saying it was okay to not be good at studying. The next day, Miss Han-young arrived at school and found that the students had brought out metal drums to use as a smoking station. Suddenly, the school inspector appeared and told them to put out their cigarettes. She thought he was finally enforcing rules, but instead he told her to get rid of the drums because the inspection team was coming. Miss Han-young was struggling with a heavy drum when a helpful male student came to assist. This handsome young man's name was John Yo. He suggested it would be better if the inspector saw these drums, but Miss Han-young said they still couldn't just ignore school property. Ji-min went to class and found a notebook in his desk. It was Se-hun's math notebook. It turned out this bookworm wanted to give it to Ji-min but pretended he was throwing it away instead. Suddenly, Hyun-woo picked up a chair and slammed it into Ji-min's head. He wanted revenge because he knew Ji-min was the guy in the mask from yesterday. Hyun-woo picked up the precious notebook and Ji-min went crazy trying to get it back. Meanwhile, the inspector was walking around checking the school when he saw Miss Han Young struggling with the drum. He thought he had met her somewhere before, but the vice principal said she was just a new contract teacher. Suddenly, the sound of breaking glass rang out and Miss Han Young ran to the classroom in panic. Going back a few minutes earlier, Hyun Woo had been demanding a one-on-one fight with Ji Min. Se-hun, showing loyalty to his friend, didn't want to leave, but Ji Min told him I won't lose. Hyun Woo lit the notebook on fire with a lighter and then took a hammer and swung it at Ji Min. But Ji Min didn't care about defending himself, he instead frantically rushed to save the precious burning notebook. The thugs standing around were shocked because they didn't expect Ji Min to be so strong. Ji Min knocked Hyun Woo away to go save the notebook, but by the time he reached it, the notebook was burned to a crisp. He went crazy, knocked the hammer out the window, and punched Hyun Woo to the ground. Hyun Woo picked up the burning backpack and threw it at Ji Min. But Ji Min jumped up, did a 360-degree spin kick, and sent the backpack flying back into Hyun Woo's chest. Then Ji Min even wanted to shake Hyun Woo awake to make him apologize to Se-hun before letting him pass out again. Seeing how much Ji Min treasured the notebook, Se-hun suddenly threw the charred notebook into the trash can and said he agreed to join the study group. Ji Min was as happy as if he had won the lottery. When Miss Han Young appeared and frantically grabbed a fire extinguisher to put out the remaining fire, she couldn't even ask what happened before the inspector arrived. He saw the classroom looking like a battlefield and a male student unconscious on the ground. For assault and arson, Ji Min was invited to the principal's office for a serious chat. Se-hun snuck in to give Ji Min his glasses back and thank him for saving him yesterday. Ji Min was being lectured when he heard Se-hun call him study group leader. Se-hun was happily walking back to class when he saw everyone frantically moving out of the way. It turned out 3 big thugs were looking for Hyun Woo and were dragging him to the roof for a meeting with their boss. In front of the inspector, the principal promised to handle the violence by expelling Ji Min. Miss Han Young tried to speak up for him, but the principal brushed her off. Seeing them about to leave without listening, she finally gathered all her courage and spoke up. She said this school was prioritizing the inspector over 600 students. It was because Ji Min was bullied and harassed beforehand that he had to act that way. Violence is never right, Miss Han Young admitted, but in this school, do the kids have any other way to protect themselves? At that moment, the inspector realized that Miss Han Young was the top scorer on last year's teacher recruitment exam. But for some reason, she didn't register, so her results were cancelled. He asked her how she planned to solve the school's violence problem. Miss Han Young said she would help the students form
study group?
This was also Ji Min's original idea. The inspector seemed very interested in this approach. The principal was extremely annoyed but couldn't do anything in front of the inspector. He just threatened that if the study group failed to show results, Miss Han Young's contract would be terminated immediately. Exactly at 5 p.m. every day, Ji Min went to the park to train vigorously with exercises and martial arts practice. When the security guard reminded him that it was already 6:30, he frantically ran home and got ready for school the next day. Se-hun was already waiting at their meeting spot but pretended that they just happened to meet by coincidence. This bookworm was still a coward, afraid of being noticed by the bullies for wanting to study. Miss Han Young announced that they had to find at least 5 people to join the study group within the next 2 weeks. Only then would it be recognized as an official school club. Se-hun complained that there was no way they could find 3 more kids willing to study at this violent school. But Miss Han Young encouraged them, saying that nothing was impossible if they tried hard enough. So the 2 of them started by putting up flyers around school. Seeing everyone crowding around to look, Ji Min became so confident that he worried what would happen if too many people wanted to sign up. A 12th grader called, and they thought someone wanted to join the study group. But it turned out this guy just wanted dating advice. Feeling discouraged, they were about to give up when someone walked in and asked where Ji Min was. Ji Min was excited, thinking someone finally wanted to join the study group. It turned out this guy was ranked 3rd in combat power among the 10th graders. He had heard from others that Ji Min was incredibly strong, so he came to challenge Ji Min and steal his ranking. As soon as they met, the guy started attacking relentlessly. Ji Min was naively looking around for the application form to give him, but he accidentally avoided all the attacks again and again. Finally, the unlucky challenger accidentally got hit in the nose by a locker. Seeing him lying unconscious, Ji Min was still confused and didn't understand what had happened. But the classmates started spreading rumors, exaggerating the story. They said that the vicious Ji Min dragged the 3rd-ranked guy into the library and beat him badly. The next day, still no one had signed up for the study group. So Ji Min decided he had to actively search for people. But his criteria were very specific. Students had to have a genuine desire to learn visible in their eyes. 3 students were chatting about why Ji-min beat someone up when he walked toward them. Each of them trembled nervously, afraid of being forced to join the group. Ji-min examined them carefully for signs of wanting to study, but seeing none, he disappointedly left. The thugs breathed a sigh of relief like they had escaped disaster. Wherever Ji-min went, people avoided him like the plague now. 2 guys were running away from him when they bumped into John Yo, Se-hun's middle school friend who had gone to study abroad in America since 8th grade.
스터디 그룹?
Ji-min excitedly ran over and invited John Yo to join. But John Yo was very cold, asking Ji-min if he wasn't worried about the people around him getting hurt because of his actions. Miss Han Young was worried because Hyun-woo hadn't come to class for the past few days. She went to his house, but no one answered the door. Se-hun wondered why they had to study in a group when they could go to tutoring centers or study online instead. Ji-min explained that he had tried studying in all those places, but nothing worked for him. Se-hun suggested that Ji-min was better suited for sports than studying, but for Ji-min, sports were just for building strength so he could study better. Seeing them feeling discouraged, Miss Han Young invited them to go to a bookstore for fun. She asked about a book, and Ji-min said he already had it, but they ended up buying a bunch of fancy pens anyway. Miss Han Young asked why Ji-min was buying so many pens. Ji-min excitedly explained that this pen helps improve memory, that pen doesn't smear, one is specifically for doing math, and this new model is comfortable to hold, so he wanted to try it. She was speechless when she found out Se-hun only used cheap ballpoint pens. Ji-min thought that maybe using cheap pens was the secret to being good at studying, and he should try one sometime. The 2 students asked why she, the top graduate, was working at such a terrible school. Miss Han Young awkwardly explained that she forgot to register for the teaching position on time. On the way home, Miss Han Young found that a book Ji-min bought was accidentally in her bag. As she was about to call him to return it, she noticed her front door was open. Inside was Hyun-woo, bruised and battered, and 2 thugs waiting for her. She threatened to call the police, but Hyun-woo said that if he went back to his gang now, he would be finished. The gang leader had ordered these thugs to make sure Miss Han Young couldn't teach anymore. Suddenly, a grenade broke through the window and froze the thugs inside a force field temporarily. An armed person entered. It was John Yo. He fought the thugs hand to hand while Miss Han Young helped by throwing things at them. Back to Ji-min and Se-hun, they were still desperately trying to find study group members. One evening, Miss Han Young was taking a walk when she suddenly saw John Yo speeding toward her on a motorcycle. He begged her not to hold any disciplinary hearings against the gang, fearing she'd end up like his mother. The next day, a massive brawl broke out at school. It turned out someone had posted on the combat ranking app that whoever climbed to the top ranking within 1 hour would get 1 million won in cash. Students all over school started fighting each other wildly for this prize. Ji-min's group was looking for a place to hide when Se-hun got hit in the head with a bottle. The culprit was a guy who used to study hard, but now he'd gone crazy just for the money. Se-hun, not interested in fighting, sadly walked away. Ji-min tried to comfort him, but Se-hun finally broke down. Let's say I study hard, do well, and get into college. But what if society out there is just as messed up as this school? I thought I could change my destiny, but this dreaming is exhausting. Just then, Se-hun's dad called, and he rushed off immediately. Ji-min also got a message and ran to the study group room. It turned out 2 guys were causing trouble there, sent by the gang. They started wrecking everything the study group had worked for. One guy told Ji-min that in this school, the gang was reality. They had money and connections for protection. What could Ji-min offer, excited dreams or false hope? He should tell Miss Han Young to cancel any plans against them, and they'd let the study group graduate peacefully. Ji-min was itching to fight as he watched them destroy the room, but he remembered Miss Han Young's words and clenched his fists, holding back. He watched helplessly as everything they'd worked for was mercilessly trashed. Se-hun arrived at the construction site and saw his dad arguing with a coworker. The guy said Se-hun's son was a gangster and a thug. Se-hun felt heartbroken and regretful. He didn't dare explain anything, just sat quietly and listened to his dad scold him severely. When his dad stopped yelling, Se-hun said he'd quit school and apply for a job at the construction site. Ji-min overheard everything and could only sigh helplessly. He knew Se-hun was giving up on his dreams. Other students whispered and gossiped behind Ji-woo's back, Hyun-woo's twin sister who wanted to join the group. They said her younger brother also hurt a teacher and was sent to juvenile detention. Like brother, like sister, their parents must be in trouble too. That's why they abandoned them. Hee-won got furious and yelled at them, making Ji-woo burst out laughing. You're really acting tough today. Just then, Hee-won's parents came to take her home, wanting to forbid her from associating with Ji-woo and the group. Lee Jun, the red-haired boy who wanted to join, kept texting the group chat to check in, but nobody replied. Is our group really about to fall apart? He wondered. He kept writing and deleting messages. Suddenly, he saw Se-hun leave the group chat. Remembering all the threats, Lee Jun hesitated, thinking about what to do. At that moment, his mom came in. Ji-min confessed to his own mother, "My group is really about to fall apart. We just wanted to study properly." She said the reason she let Ji-min stay at this dangerous school was because she saw how happy he was when studying with the group. Ji-min remembered all the fun memories with everyone, Se-hun helping grade papers, Hee-won force-feeding him supplements, Ji-woo making jokes. Looking back at his favorite motto on the wall, "I will create my own opportunities," Ji-min regained his spirit to continue fighting. Miss Han-young tried everything to clear the study group's name but without success. The head of academics told her to cancel any action against the gang if she didn't want Ji-min expelled. That was the reality of the school. Miss Han-young was about to give up, but at the last minute, she hesitated and decided to keep fighting. Early the next morning, as Se-hun left his house, he saw Ji-min waiting outside. It turned out Ji-min had come to the construction site to apply for a job too. Se-hun told him to go home, but Ji-min stubbornly followed, wanting to help his friend. Se-hun clumsily tripped and dropped a whole stack of cement bags. When Se-hun said he didn't want to go to college anymore, Ji-min took off his glasses and aggressively approached him. Se-hun braced himself for a beating, but instead, Ji-min said he would definitely study with Se-hun so they could both get into college together. Se-hun was so touched he burst into tears and said, "Let's go home." The two were leaving when they met Se-hun's dad. Se-hun knelt down and thanked his dad for working so hard to raise him. He realized how difficult his dad's job was, but he really wanted to continue school. He asked his dad to give him just 3 years, and he promised he wouldn't disappoint him. After saying that, Se-hun left, and Ji-min added that Se-hun would definitely own buildings as big as construction sites someday. The two of them went to Hee-won's house next. Se-hun introduced himself as the top student at school and explained the rumors about them being gangsters were just misunderstandings. He asked Hee-won's parents to trust him to tutor their daughter, guaranteeing she'd get into college. Ji-min then pulled out a huge basket of gifts, blueberries and other brain-boosting foods. Her parents seemed to be convinced. Next, they found Ji-woo working at a convenience store. Hee-won followed her and had a heart-to-heart talk. Hee-won admitted she probably wouldn't have many friends in college and wished she could find a boyfriend. But Ji-woo said that even if she managed to get to college, she'd probably freeze up during introductions. Am I supposed to say I'm a poor orphan girl with a twin brother in detention? But Hee-won said that's exactly what made Ji-woo special. She was lonely but still tried to study and work. You're a girl who's both smart and incredibly strong. There are definitely guys with taste who would appreciate that. Ji-woo couldn't help but laugh. Lee Jun practiced with nunchucks at home and accidentally hit his own leg. Looking down, he checked his phone and saw that Se-hun had rejoined the group chat. Everyone was coming back together. Miss Han-young was determined to hold a disciplinary hearing against the gang and then resign if needed. The vice principal asked if she didn't want to protect the study group anymore. But she replied that her students weren't just the ones in that group, she promised to protect all students who were bullied. The next morning, the study group went to school together, their faces burning with determination. They were all ready to bring the gang leader to the disciplinary hearing, even though they knew their group might also face punishment and possible expulsion. A student named Blondie, Sun Chol, brought up what happened last year, how a teacher tried the same thing and was hurt badly by gang members. The gang leader didn't see the school as a place of learning but as his kingdom. Being kicked out would be like losing his inheritance. Ji-woo, fired up, wanted to strike first, but Se-hun reminded everyone to be careful because this involved Miss Han-young's safety. Ji-min agreed and was determined to protect Miss Han-young at all costs until the hearing took place. The vice principal called Miss Han-young for a private meeting to confess to the illegal deals between the school and the gang. But when she arrived, the lights went out and she was surrounded by gang members. Just then, the school's PA system suddenly blared with Hee-won's voice cursing the evil guys. It turned out Ji-min's group had been secretly watching Miss Han-young the whole time, worried for her safety. When they learned she was meeting the vice principal, they set up an ambush. Ji-min asked Lee Jun to take Miss Han-young away and protect her. He would deal with the gang leader personally. Ji-woo and Blondie took on 2 others. Se-hun was responsible for dealing with the hat guy who had a weapon. Lee Jun had to fight his old childhood friend who had betrayed him. From the 1st to the 4th floor, all of them fought their own opponents. At first, everyone was at a disadvantage. Ji-woo couldn't beat the strong opponent alone, so she teamed up with Blondie. Working together, they finally won. Se-hun was being shot at by the hat guy until he ran out of bullets. Then Se-hun stepped up to fight back using techniques Ji-min's mom had taught him. First, he had to take the hits but never give up. When the guy got tired, Se-hun focused on attacking weak points. In the end, he won. Lee Jun pulled a weapon from his chest and took down his former friend with quick attacks. The others had already won their battles, leaving only the strongest, the gang leader Pan-al, versus Ji-min. Ji-min was knocked down many times. Pan-al mocked him, saying he could change nothing and couldn't save anyone. Hearing that Miss Han-young was still in danger, Ji-min struggled up and used his ultimate forbidden technique to defeat Pan-al. Meanwhile, Miss Han-young, who had escaped, was blocked by more gang members. She clutched evidence helplessly until she heard Hee-won's voice. Behind Hee-won stood dozens of students she had convinced to help protect their teacher. Students from all grades came together, including former enemies, because Miss Han-young had shown them that teachers really could care about students. Even the tough guy Tarzan came to repay his debt of gratitude to Miss Han-young for taking a hit for someone before. A massive fight broke out, but this time it was students united to protect something good, their teacher and their right to learn. The scene of all these students coming together to fight for education instead of rankings is really powerful. It shows that people can change when given hope. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more. The next day, Miss Han-young successfully held the disciplinary meeting. Pan-al was expelled with more than half the votes. Using Miss Han-young's recording as evidence, he was also arrested for past crimes. The vice principal who had covered for him was punished too. Everything was finally settled. Miss Han-young had fulfilled her mentor's wish of turning the school into a proper learning environment. Hyun-woo was released early from juvenile detention for turning his life around and reconciled with his sister Ji-woo. The study group's story wasn't over though, their final exams were coming. Everyone studied together diligently, setting a rule that whoever got the worst grade would face a fun punishment. They went on a field trip to visit a prestigious school in Seoul to see what a real study group looked like. The facilities there were amazing, way beyond their imagination. Though some students there looked down on them at first, they eventually connected and learned from each other. Ji-min even helped rescue a bullied student from a nearby violent school, showing that his fighting skills could be used for good. The student turned out to be his old classmate who had once rejected him from a study group. The boy apologized for being arrogant back then and said, "You have to keep trying. Who knows, maybe later you'll be the best in the school, then the best in the country." Ji-min was so touched his eyes welled up with tears. Back at their own school, the study group finally got their own activity room. Though it was old and messy, they worked together to clean it and make it their base. While they were enjoying their hard work, the arrogant top student Kim arrived to mock them. He called them stupid and said just huddling together wouldn't make them smart. Ji-min was itching to teach him a lesson, but Se-hun reminded him they should beat Kim with academic skills, not fists. Miss Han-young announced the midterm exam schedule. She read out everyone's placement test scores. Lee Jun got 31 points, ranked 132 out of 220 in the whole grade. Ji-woo got 14 points, ranked 180. Hee-won got 29 points, ranked 162. Finally, Ji-min only got 8 points, ranked 219 out of 220 in the whole grade. He truly was the king of bad students. In contrast, Se-hun got 95 points, ranked second in the grade. If you didn't count Se-hun, this group was basically a collection of the school's worst students. But there were still 20 days until the midterm exams. Miss Han-young said if they followed her instructions carefully, maybe a miracle could happen. She had secretly made a bet with the school's academic head: if every member improved their ranking by 10 places, he would support her fully. The exam day arrived. Everyone was tense and focused, hearing only the rustling of pens on paper. As soon as they finished, everyone rushed to Se-hun to compare answers. Everyone was happy because they chose the same answers as the top student, except Ji-min, who had different answers and looked worried. After the exam, the group went out to play and relieve stress. Everyone was happy and cheerful except Ji-min, who was always dejected and nervous. The group played a strength testing game, and when it was Ji-min's turn, he accidentally broke the machine from stress. They had to pour out all their funds to pay for damages. According to his friends, there are 4 days a year when Ji-min must not be approached, the midterm and final exam days. Every time he checked answers, he became uneasy and couldn't focus, even losing control of his strength. Se-hun explained using a metaphor: when you boil water, nothing seems to change until it suddenly reaches boiling point and turns to steam. Learning is the same: if you keep putting in energy, there will be big changes, even if you can't see them yet. Ji-min was finally enlightened and felt better. His face brightened with hope again. Soon, The midterm results were announced. He won and Ji Woo screamed with joy at their improvements. Lee Jun smiled smugly because his score was higher than Ji Woo's for once. Se Hun ranked first in the entire grade. Ji Min stared at his score sheet without saying a word. Lee Jun anxiously grabbed it to look. Ji Min had moved from 219th to 209th place. Up exactly 10 spots. The whole group rushed over to congratulate him excitedly. Miss Han Young had successfully completed the challenge. The academic head kept his promise and signed the petition to hold a disciplinary hearing for the gang. The next morning, a summons was posted at the school gate like an official declaration of war. The final confrontation resulted in the gang leader's expulsion and arrest. The school slowly began to transform into a proper educational institution. Students started studying seriously instead of just fighting for rankings. The study group's journey showed that with determination, friendship, and the right support, anyone could overcome obstacles, whether those obstacles were bullies, poverty, or even their own limitations. Ji Min proved that wanting to learn was nothing to be ashamed of. In the end, the most important lesson wasn't about test scores or college admissions. It was about having the courage to dream, the strength to protect those dreams, and friends willing to fight alongside you, whether with fists or textbooks. The study group's story continued as they prepared for final exams, with new challenges awaiting. But now they faced them together, stronger than ever, proving that sometimes the best way to fight for your education is simply refusing to give up on it. If you enjoyed this recap of Study Group, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss more amazing movie and series explanations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.